Trap drums are so easy to make, and once you understand the fundamentals, they can be done over and over again. The simplicity of trap drums is often the very thing that makes them bump so hard. Today, I'm going to give you the basics, an outline you can follow every single time you need to program some trap drum. I'll give you my thought process as well as a few tips and tricks that you can use when you're programming your trap drums. And I've made a ton of beats, and of the 220 that I've made, I would say about 80% of them have been trap. So it's safe to say that trap is my favorite genre to make. So let's just dive into the meat and potatoes of trap. So the basics. The things that define the trap genre are the BPM as well as the drum sound selection. The melody isn't so important when defining the genre, it's really in the drums. Now the trap BPM ranges from about 110 BPM to around 170 BPM. Anywhere in this range would be considered trap. Now, the drums that define the trap genre can be broken down into four main elements. Number 1, the 808 or the kick. 2, snare or the clap. 3, the hi-hat and the open hat. And 4, perks. And I've listed them in order of loudness. This is a fundamental loudness that can be applied to every single beat. So that's the basic outline of trap drums. Let's just hop into FL and program some drums. I have an old sample of mine loaded up. We're working at 123 BPM, so let's just listen to it first and hear what it sounds like. Perfect. Okay, now the very first thing that you need to do, and this is super important, so do not skip this step, is you need to cut out the low end of your melody when you're programming your drum. And if you don't know how to do that, check out this video here where I go in depth on mixing trap drums. So I just set up a little automation clip and an EQ to cut out the low end when the drums are supposed to come in. Okay, so I always start my drums with the drop. So let's highlight this little 8-bar section right here, and this is going to be the drop. The first drum that I always put in is the 808, simply because it's the loudest drum, and if you get this one correct, all of the other drums kind of fall into place where they're supposed to. Now, when it comes to choosing an 808, it really depends on your sample and obviously your taste. You could spend all day going through different 808s. And I mean, I have so many different 808s. But if you want an 808 that's going to work every single time, the Spinz. It's just a classic. And if you listen to trap at all, you've definitely heard the Spinz before. It's a classic. So here we have the Spinz loaded up. And let's program a little pattern in here. Now, the key to the 808 is a melodic instrument. It's really part of the melody. It's more melody than it is drums. It's kind of the connecting piece between the melody and the drum. So it's super important that your melody is in tune and in key. For this sample, we are working in C minor. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight the C minor scale in my piano roll. Now, a tip when programming your 808s is to actually program them 2 octaves higher than where they're supposed to be. And this just makes it way easier to hear if a note is out of tune or on the wrong note. Because when it's low, it's a lot harder for our ears to pick it up. But when it's 2 octaves higher, it's really easy to hear when something's wrong. So like, I'll just give you a little bit of an example here. If we have this little pattern here, this note is out of key and this note is also out of key. And it just sounds gross. But when you put it down 2 octaves, it's a lot harder to tell that it's out of key. Whereas when it's up 2 octaves, you can really tell because it clashes a lot more with the melody. As for the pattern of your 808, you want to start with just the root note and get the rhythm down first. For the rhythm, syncopation is great on the 808. And if you don't know what syncopation is, all that is when the 808 is going to hit on the upbeat as opposed to the downbeat. If we turn the metronome on, the 808 is going to hit when the metronome is not hitting, and that's a syncopated rhythm. But it's important to lay down a foundation. So it's important to lay down a foundation before you start adding syncopated rhythm. So what I like to do is I'll put an 808 on the first beat of the first bar, as well as the first beat of the fifth bar. That way I kind of have this framework to work with inside of. And I actually think that I'm also going to put it on here and here. So this is going to be my framework. Now, within this framework, I can add syncopated rhythms how I see fit. So let's just go down here into this first 2-bar section and try to come up with a little bit of a syncopated rhythm. Maybe something like this. And then maybe something like this. Boom, perfect. So we're just going to use that and we're just going to copy and paste this over. And now what we can do is, since we have the rhythm down, obviously it's all on the bass notes right now, and that can get kind of boring. So what you can do is now we can move these notes around a little bit, and as long as we stay in the scale, it should sound good. So as long as we stay in the C minor scale, it should sound pretty good. So let's go something like this maybe. Okay, so I like that. So let's copy and paste that over. And then now what we're going to do is we're going to lower this 2 octaves. Okay, we'll turn the metronome off. Boom. So that's just a real simple 808 pattern. It's just going to repeat throughout the beat. Okay, now moving on to the snare. Selecting a snare or a clap, you want to pick a sound that is short and snappy. Something like this. It's real short, it's real snappy. It's not long, it doesn't have a reverb or a long decay, nothing like that. But if you find a snare that you like, but it's a little bit too long, you hear that tail, what you can do is if you just twist this out knob up a little bit, it's actually going to shorten that decay and shorten that tail. So we'll put it at about right here. And the pattern for trap snares is super easy. All it is you're hitting on the 3 of every bar. Let's just go ahead and program that in. It's going to hit right there. And it's just going to hit on the 3 of every bar. So let's hear what we got. Picking up a little bit more energy now. And now for the hi-hat, the same principles that apply to the snare also apply to the hi-hat. You want to find something short and snappy. Again, you can twist the out knob and get the desired shortness that you want. So we're going to put it at about, we're going to turn this out down a little bit. And now the first step that I always do when programming my hi-hats, throw in a 2-step. And the way to do that is if you right click on the hi-hat and you go over here to fill each 2-step, it's going to go and fill each 2-step for however long your pattern is. So let's just listen to that and see how it sounds. Now we're really picking up the energy. Okay, and now on to the open hat. Now for the open hat, literally the same rules apply that apply to the snare and the hi-hat also apply to the open hat. But you can allow it to get a little bit longer just because it's an open hat. It doesn't have to be as snappy as the snare or the hi-hat. When programming your patterns, there's 2 ways to do the open hat. You can either use the open hat as a way to add bounce or a way to add impact. And the way you add impact is by layering the 808 with the open hat. And so let me show you what that sounds like. If we just copy and paste this and then do one of these, you're going to hear how the 808 and the open hat hit on the same exact beat, and it adds a ton of impact. Boom. The other way to do your open hat is to use it to add bounce. And you do that by adding it on the syncopated rhythms. Spots that will always work when you're doing an open hat is this third beat right here of any of these bars. So we'll do here and here, and then we'll just kind of copy and paste this over. Notice how it's not hitting on the downbeat, it's actually hitting on the upbeat. So this is going to be a super syncopated rhythm, and then we'll do this. And then we'll just copy and paste all of this. So this is the other way to do your open hat. Now, personally, I like to use kind of both when I'm doing my open hats. So we're going to put one here. We're going to put one here and here. So I kind of like to use both techniques of layering it and using the open hat as bounce. So let's see what we can do here. Let's do this, and then we'll get rid of this one and get rid of this one just because I don't want to overcrowd it. And then we'll get rid of this one and go here. Okay, and then we can just copy and paste this over. So this is kind of a mix of using both techniques of adding bounce as well as adding impact at the same time. So let's just see how this sounds. Boom, perfect. For your perks. Your perks are really, really important in adding that bounce. They fit in similar positions that the open hat fit in, but a key to your perks is to make sure that they have space to hit. So for this beat, I chose a triangle. I just love triangles. Let's say we wanted to hit here. This triangle is going to hit on the same beat as the open hat. And you hear how it kind of muddies it up and you can't really distinguish the two. So a key when you're placing your perks is to find little gaps that they can go in. So it seems like right here, we have a little bit of an opening, and we can make even more space by getting rid of these hi-hats and putting a triangle here. And then we're going to have another little gap right here. So let's get rid of this, and we'll get rid of this as well. So now this pattern should sound pretty good, adding a little bit of bounce to our drums here. And we're going to do the same thing with the hi-hat. And we are going to go into our hi-hat pattern, and we are going to get rid of this and get rid of this. So that way we create a little bit of space for our perk to shine through. So let's just see what this sounds like. I actually want this to hit twice, so let's do a little bit of this action and a little bit of this here. Boom. And there we go. We have a super basic outline for trap drums. And now from here, you can split by channel and you can start arranging your beat. Copy and paste your drums, do some of this, just whatever you want. The world is yours pretty much. And let's do a little intro thing here where we go tap, tap. Okay. So we got a little basic drum pattern laid down and a little tiny arrangement. Let's just hear what it sounds like. Super bouncy. And now obviously this is a super basic pattern, and You could go in and add hi-hat rolls, counter snares, all sorts of things. But this is such a good fundamental basics that you need to be able to do this. If you can't do this, then I mean, I don't know what you're doing, honestly. So I hope you found value in this video. Thank you for watching, and I will see you when I see you.